I'm Shirley Paulson in conversation with Natalie Renee Perkins. We're talking about my book, Illuminating the Secret Revelation of John, Catching the Light. And we invite you to listen in. So what do you think about when people feel like they're victimized, and this book is saying there are things you can do? Do you feel like it's naive, or is it something that's truly useful for a person who feels victimized? What do you think?
As a person who sits, at the intersection of a couple of marginalized groups, I did really find some hope in, to be very honest, I'm exhausted of fighting all of these battles that keep coming. It's kind of like drinking from a fire hose right now. But I did get a hope that my work, one, matters, right? Like the things that I'm doing to dismantle matter, and that the systems themselves will not ultimately win. They can't. They just aren't rooted in this light. And one thing that Dr. James Cone, who, just for the sake of your audience, the father of Black liberation theology, he was my advisor at Union while I was in seminary there. And he used to say, no matter what, you've got to have the hope. You have to hold the hope. And I really honestly have been struggling with that. So this idea that my work is not in vain, not because whatever I do will ultimately change the arc of the moral universe, but also because what this is rooted in from the very beginning is actually evil, is wrong, is death dealing, and is ultimately destructive even unto itself.
Wow, that is so.
Yeah, it gave me a real hope that I just haven't been able to connect to in a while.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting for us to think about the role of myth, because this is talking about creation. Of course, none of us were there in creation if they happened in a certain kind of time way. And yet, if we can really have that picture of creation not being without any roots, without evil having any roots in it, then I think we have a reason for acting with hope. And so I think this myth idea does give us something to think about in a different way, rather than just reacting to things that are around us, but just to think differently. So I'm very interested in your why you could have hope even though you don't see things around you that are moving very much.
Isn't that fascinating? Right. Well, I'm curious with this idea of myth. As I was reading in your book, I'm just curious how you see um, myth playing out, how we hold myth now today, right? Like there's a lot of things that I think we hold as a country even that aren't necessarily true, right?
Yeah.
And hearing you write, about myth, and it's not actually about them being true, right? So I just would love to hear how you reconcile myth in our American narrative.
Yeah, that's a really helpful thing for us to think about together, really, because I think that as we all bring our experiences together, we can understand better with each other. But for me, myth is saying, okay, here's a way to think about it. It's not a historical reality, but it's a way of thinking. And so this way of thinking is, okay, how would you imagine life if it were true that evil didn't have a foundation in creation? What would you do? What would you think? How would you behave in such a way that is based on that idea? And so the myth of the creation being, as the way the story goes in the secret revelation of John, is that the good creator God made everything good, and that evil is only a fraud. It's a fake, and so it can't stand up under it. Then it means that you can't kid yourself in thinking, well, I'm going to forever have advantage over somebody else. And you can't also be so depressed that you can never move by thinking that I will never ever be out of this oppressed place. So to me, the myth is a way of saying, keep moving. Don't stop. Thanks for being with us. We've been talking about my book, Illuminating the Secret Revelation of John, Catching the Light, published by Cascade Books, which is available on the website earlychristiantexts.com or your favorite bookseller.